Hi, everybody, and welcome to this special episode of the Dr. Keith Darrow podcast. You know that you can listen to this wherever you get your podcast, and you can also watch this on YouTube. So I am joined today by a very special guest, Brittany Tucker. Now, I met her through the coaching world because I believe even the greatest players need a coach. And so Brittany, who works with, the coaches that I've been involved with. So I've been very fortunate to work with her. She's a coach, speaker, motivator, and just a really cool person, in my opinion, who's done a lot of great things in her life. And I think one of the reason I wanted her on here today was to talk about how she can help lead to building autonomous teams, how you can sort of hone in on each individual member's, their natural instincts, their Kolbe, which a lot of people might not know yet, and how you sort of bring that together. So welcome to the show, Brittany, and I guess tell us a little bit about you and your journey.
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks for having me. This is super fun for me, and I love what you're doing. My journey started about 10 years ago, and I did a sort of trial and error. Who am I? What am I supposed to be doing with my life? And it kind of led me down this fun, exciting path. And here we are, 11 years later, teaching people about themselves. And just like you, I love helping people learn to live a better life.
And how do you do that? I mean, is it specific to a field, to an industry, or are you kind of one-stop shop for every organization?
Yes, it's all over the board. I work with a lot of corporate companies, but I also work with a lot of individuals. My specialty is around women. And so that's kind of where it got its start. It's evolved. I do coach men as well. Obviously, I've done a lot of coaching in the orthodontic field. So that's where it started, and we're growing every day and learning what can we do to serve people in a better way and help them really, live their best lives.
Well, I love that it's not industry specific, but I will say in the field of hearing healthcare, the number's somewhere around 85% female. It's one of those things that you look out. I remember, being in school, and I think there was like 76 of us, and there was me. I was the one male that graduated with my class. So it's very heavy in the female. And so I believe that a lot of people can learn from you. So kind of, where do you start? I mean, I call you up, I say, look, I need some help. My team is as an individual, everybody's highly motivated. They're great people with great skills. But as a group, we're not meshing that well. And I don't know how to really build this autonomous team. So where do you even begin?
So I would start with the Kolbe. So
which is listeners,
what? Yeah. Okay, good. Let's start from the top. So Kolbe is basically an assessment of the mind. It measures the cognitive part of your mind, which is where your natural instincts are. And so I like to say, we just went from level 9 to level 5. I need you to keep going down to like level 2 for me. Okay, good. So there are 3 parts of the mind. Okay, modern psychologists share the theory, 3 parts of the mind. Most of us, Keith, are familiar with the affective part of the mind and the cognitive part of the mind. Okay, right. So that's where standardized tests would measure the cognitive part of the mind, the LSAT, the SAT, the MCAT. The affective part of the mind is where our personality is. So that's our likes, our dislikes, Myers-Briggs, DISC, color-coded. Most people are very familiar with those.
And are those, just to clarify, because I want to draw the distinction with Kolbe, which we're getting to, are those 2 modifiable?
So they are. So a lot of people don't know this, but you can take Myers-Briggs today and you can take it 10 years from today, and it can change based on your life experiences.
Okay.
So they're great. They're very popular. You'll hear people talk about an enneagram is very, very big right now. That's the real popular one. Everybody's like, what's your enneagram? And there's books on it and this and that, but it does measure the affective part of the mind. So you have to be very, very careful with that.
Would it be okay to call affective like your emotional, your personality?
Correct. Yes.
And so the cognitive the cognitive would be, I mean, you specifically pointed out some tests, so that would be based on your level of education.
Yes, your knowledge, your learning, your training, those sorts of things. And what's interesting too is that most people hire based on cognitive and affective. And then we wonder why the person gets in the role 3 months down the road after they have the skills and also after, they fit into our culture, and we wonder why it doesn't work out. And so the missing piece here is Kolbe. And so that actually measures, it's pronounced the cognitive part of the mind. Most people have never heard of it before. Right. I like to say it is a hidden gem. And so Kathy Kolbe, the lady who actually invented the Kolbe, has done the most amount of research on the Kolbe. And so it is a measure of this part of our mind. I like to say,
is it okay can you simplify, is this right? Is it okay to simplify the co-native to natural instinct?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. Because that's the way sort of I think about it. I am not Kolbe certified, although I spend a lot of time with 3 people who are Kolbe certified. So I've just through osmosis learned a lot. And that's when I have to explain it to a stranger, I kind of go with natural instinct. So I'm glad I got that right.
Yes, natural instincts, that gut feeling. I like the easiest way that I explain it is it's your hardware, and effective and cognitive is your software, because they can be updated.
Hardware not necessarily can't be changed. Is that kind of the difference?
Correct. Okay. Exactly. Yeah. So that is big picture overview of what Kolbe is. And so it can be used, just like you were stating, with teams to help people understand where their strengths are, who needs to be doing what. And ultimately this can help decrease stress in the office and increase productivity.
Just by learning somebody's natural instincts? Help me make sense of that.
Yes. So here's a really good example for you. So I can go into an office and I can have everyone take the assessment.
Okay.
So let's say one person is better at fact finding, and that means they're going to be really good at researching things. Okay. That is their natural instinct to do that. It is not that someone who doesn't have a long line and that can't do that. It just takes them more time to do it.
And it's more stressful.
Correct. You're exactly right. So it's Kolbe is not a measure of what we can't do. It's just what comes natural to us. And so if I go into an office and let's say you are 2 in the fact finding mode and I am a 9 and you're doing all the research, that's not very efficient because it's going to take you a lot longer than it would someone like me. So I like to go in and see who's doing what responsibilities can be, changed around. And so that's where I start with Kolbe.
So fact finding is one of the 4 co-native or natural instincts, correct? So tell us about the other 3.
Yes. So fact finding is how you gather and share information. Follow through is how you organize, arrange, systematize things. The quick start mode is how you deal with risk, change, and uncertainty. And then the implementer mode is how you deal with physical space. So I like to say, a lot of people confuse the last one and think it means, do I get things done? Do I implement things? And I like to say, how hands-on are you?
Okay.
Yes.
Interesting. So we had not talked about this. I will reveal for you. I am a 6 in fact finding.
Okay.
I'm this one. I feel embarrassed. I'm a 2 in follow through.
That is okay. That's okay.
A 9, 8 or 9 in quick start in the adaptability, and yellow. That last one somewhere, I want to say 3 or 4. If I remember correctly.
Okay.
So what would that mean? How would you describe that to me?
Yeah. So it's interesting because you're 9 in the quick start. It means you are very, it's natural for you to look to the future, which is why you do what you do, right? And you're growing businesses and you're building businesses. I see a lot of entrepreneurs in this zone. The 2 follow through. It just means that you like to take shortcuts. So I always say my entrepreneurs who are long green lines like yourself, your right-hand person needs to be a long blue line. to make sure that things are actually getting done.
And for those of you who do know me and know what we do, yes, Jared is my high blue bar, which drives him nuts. He's the primary blue bar in our organization. And yes, he is our person to follow through because I'm slightly offended by the shortcuts, not only because it might be true. But yeah, the green bar, that my ability to sort of just think and act on my feet is certainly something you could throw. And I see it in the clinic. You can throw any patient at me and I'm really not going to break a sweat. I'm not even going to think twice about it. And then there's that fact finding though, which is my second highest. So tell me about that.
So you're right in the middle zone, which is the 4 through 6. Okay. So it means you need information, but you don't need a ton of information. Okay. So you don't want to get bogged down in the details. So I wouldn't give you a 12-page article to read. That's probably not best use of your time. Someone who's a 7 through 10 in that zone would be great at doing things like that.
Interesting. I always thought my courage and brazenness is what kind of got me into my PhD program. But then I had to let my fact finding really surge. And it was stressful to really get through the research and then to wrap things up and get it done. You know, the home stretch of the doctoral journey of actually putting it all into a package, wrapping a bow around it, defending the thesis was probably the most stressful time in my life. And I look back now and it makes sense because I was forced to bring something to conclusion. Exactly.
Yes. That's so good that you know that about yourself, right? And that's what's so cool about Kolbe is it's once you know who you are, it helps you with your day-to-day activities and what you should be doing, what you should be delegating. You know, I always tell people I'm a 2 in the implementer. So that means do not ask me to put anything together. So I always know if I need anything, I just have the handyman on call and he comes over and he does everything for me. So it's just not best use of my time or my energy.
Gotcha. Yeah. At our house, we call him Uncle Peter. So I know exactly what you're talking about.
I like it. That's good.
So how does this relate though to teams? Like finding out your own natural instincts and taking this assessment, which I can tell you the first time I took the assessment, I'm like, what? These are crazy questions that don't make any sense. Yet the finding explains me to a T. And everybody I know, when I see their Kolbe, I'm like, yes, that makes perfect sense. But how does that help a team work together? How does that bring together a team, just knowing natural instincts?
I'd say one of the first things is communication. So I can go into teams and do a Kolbe, and there will be people who've been working together for 10 years who necessarily don't get along. And it's like a light bulb goes off and they're like, wow, that's why me and that person might not have the best relationship in the office. And it's because our Kolbes are different. That is it. This person is wired differently than me. They do things differently. So knowing how to respect other people and also how to communicate with them. So you're not saying one of those people has to be fired. Definitely not. No,
okay.
Not at all.
Okay.
Not at all. Yes. Yeah. It's really just learning, who needs to be doing what, how to communicate best with each other, and respecting differences. So because you are a quick start, I know the best way to communicate with you is to pick up the phone and call you or to talk with you in person, not to write you a 10-paragraph email.
Don't do it. It won't get read.
Yes.
Sorry, Britt.
Exactly. But I know that. And so that's what's great about it. That's what's great to say, hey, this is the best way this person communicates. And by me doing that and understanding that, it creates less stress for all of us.
So interesting. So because a lot of the listeners here are in private practice in hearing healthcare. And I really believe, even though it's teeth in orthodontics, which is really where you sort of started out, I think, Brittany is almost a household name in the field of orthodontics. Give me an example of how you've seen Kolbe play out and cause stress and strife in private practice, and how you were able to sort of, I guess, mend a team back together. Give us a real world example.
I love to do that. So in the field of orthodontics, we obviously have our front desk team, our admin team, which is very similar to your practices.
Yeah. Oh, and sorry, that's where I was going, which is even though it's teeth, a lot of the things we do are the same. Our price tag is almost the same when it comes to treating teeth, treating ears. I believe the value proposition. So there are a lot of similarities. That's what I was kind of getting at. And in terms of front office staff, treatment coordinators, providers. So go ahead.
Definitely. Yeah. So we would have a front office team, right? Who's doing admin, who's answering phones, who's checking to make sure this insurance was, checked on and run before the patient comes in. And then we also have people in the lab. So those are people who are, sending off molds for retainers and making things in the lab with instruments. And so I've gone into an office before where someone at the front desk had a long yellow line, which is the implementer line. They were like a 7 or an 8. And they were so frustrated at their job because they weren't getting to use their hands all day. And the person in the lab actually had a shorter yellow line and a longer blue and red line, which is your fact finding and follow through, which would be great at the front desk. So we actually switched them and it worked out great because now they're working where their natural instincts are, which is going to lead to happiness, less stress throughout the job. They're not going to leave mentally burn out at the end of the day, because when you are working outside of your Kolbe, you actually use more mental energy, and that leads to burnout a lot quicker.
Interesting. So I guess my interpretation, what I'm hearing you saying is Kolbe's about helping people on your team find the right seat on the bus.
I love it. I love that quote. Yes, it's perfect.
So and I love what you just said, and that may be very, very, very foreign to some people where it's like, but no, I hired him to answer the phones and I hired her to do the lab. And now you want me to switch them? Like, that's not their job description. It's not what I've taught them. But if I'm understanding all of this, right, the cognitive, you could teach the phones person to work in the lab. You can teach the lab person to work on the phones. You can teach them that. That's something that they can grow. And now they can operate within their natural instincts and actually enjoy more what they're doing, have less stress, less burnout, perhaps get a lot less gray.
You're correct. I think it's so interesting because so many people don't know about this, but it's such a game changer when it comes to working in business and just teams in general. But yeah, it's really about, it's so hard to find talented people, okay, who actually want to work nowadays. And so when we go through that whole process of finding them, and they're a great fit for our culture, we've got to make sure we're putting them in the right position for how they're naturally wired. So that way they stay with you long term. So you're suggesting that Kolbe needs to be part of a hiring process? Correct. And how would you integrate that? Yeah. So it's done very subjectively based on different Kolbe consultants. I like to add mine in as the last piece. So you would go let's put the job ad out. Let's get your resumes. That's where we're going to filter through for the cognitive part, which is your knowledge, your training. Do they have some sort of experience in this? Then we're going to bring them in for the interview. So that will measure the affective part of the mind. So their personality, their motivation, their drive, do they fit within our culture? And then what I like to do is take the top 2 to 3 candidates after they make it past those 2. And we would offer the Kolbe for them as part of the hiring process. Okay. And what do you do with that Kolbe? Yes. So we create what we call a range of success. So that is where you, as the owner of the business, or perhaps someone who is direct manager, would take a Kolbe assessment based on the position. And we're going to get a good range of where this person should be based on what's required of this position. So is each seat on the bus have a predetermined Kolbe? Yes, it does. Okay. And it's not, the number one question I get, people always ask me is, Brittany, I'm hiring for sales. What's the perfect Kolbe for sales? That's the number one question I get. And I always say it depends, and it does, because a salesperson in your office could have different roles than a salesperson in my office. So that's why the Kolbe C needs to be taken on each position. And you can keep it for a while as long as those job descriptions are still the same. And so we had the Kolbe C, and then we would have the Kolbe A, which is what your candidate takes. I run those through together in the Kolbe software, and it actually gives me a letter grade on how well this person will do in this role based on their natural instincts. So
meaning like A, great candidate, F, like don't do it. This person
Exactly.
might have the cognitive ability, might have a great personality, but is going to be, she's going to be pulling her hair out because she's going to be really stressed.
You are exactly right. I do not recommend hiring lower than a B plus is my recommendation. I've had offices I've worked with before who go against what I say, and then they call me back 5 months later and they say, Brittany, you were totally right. I'm like, I know, because this person ends up working so much harder in this position. They're working against how they're naturally wired, and so they will burn out so quickly.
So long term, because we talked about the stability of the Kolbe, what's the research on, taking a Kolbe today, taking it in a decade? How much does it change, if anything?
It does not change. I've seen it change within a number. This is really funny. I always say this. Most people who want to retake their Kolbe are fact finders. So they're the ones who are gathering more information and questioning it. So it's pretty normal if someone comes up and says, Brittany, this is not my Kolbe. And I'm like, oh, you're a long red line. This makes sense. There is a certain instance where it will change if someone is in what we call a period of transition. So that means there is something big happening in their life, either at work or home. So a death in the family, a new baby, maybe you got a new role, or now you're managing 10 different people. And so that will kick you into transition, which just means you're in a period of 90 days of everything's got to kind of settle out, and then you'll be back.
But does that mean your Kolbe is transitioning? Because without getting into too much detail, I have an old friend of mine who is going through a lot personally, at home, with a divorce, all these issues. She's starting up a new business, had her take the Kolbe, and it came back that she's transitioning.
Transition, yes.
It hit the nail on the head. Mm-hmm. But does that mean the Kolbe's transitioning, or just she's in transition? How do you interpret that? Okay.
She is. So what it means is when she took the assessment, there are she answers so far on the scale away from each other that it's kicking her out of like the way she's operating against her natural instincts right now, because she's in survival mode.
Aha. And she is.
Yes. And so I would recommend 90 days, or when she's out of that transition, to have her retake it, and it will give her a Kolbe at that time.
Okay. So tell me do you know much about the Kolbe in terms of children, school? Have you, because I've heard about this thing, the Kolbe Y. Yes. What do you know about this?
Yes, I do not work with the Kolbe Y personally, but there is a Kolbe Y, which I want to say it's maybe starts at 10, 11, 12, right around that age range. And then obviously when you're adult, you would take the normal Kolbe A. But it is out there. Kathy Kolbe actually started her research with children in the school system, and learning, hey, why all kids learn differently, right? And the school system is set up for one type of child.
Yeah, I was going to say, don't tell the school system that, because they just teach one way.
Exactly. But yeah, I've had a lot of people who've been in my Kolbe trainings and said, hey, I want my spouse to take this, or I want my child to take it. And so I just give them the website to go on and take it. And such a great thing to know about your family and your children as they're growing up, and how they're naturally wired. And it makes sense, if a child's playing with a lot of blocks or Legos, they are probably very high in the implementer zone.
I think that's so fascinating. And it really, I think, knowing my Kolbe now, I think it explains a lot about what I went through in school, right? I mean, I've told this story before. I'm not ashamed of it. I got kicked out of high school twice. Mm-hmm. I could not just sit in a desk. I could not just sit there and just learn. It just didn't really work for me. And it doesn't work for a lot of people. And it's so intriguing to me how it really, I think a lot of it goes back to the school not adapting to the individual's natural instinct, rather forcing a student to adapt to this standardized program, which Kolbe says won't work.
You are exactly right. Have you ever heard of so many entrepreneurs who never finished college? This is a great example, right? Mark Zuckerberg dropped out of Harvard, I'm sure his long green line, if he were to take it's probably a 10. So,
well, and I love how you talk about, because I've done this. I've had my wife take it. I know when I was first introduced to Kolbe, it was this thing at work, but it explains a lot of my relationship with my wife, it with family members. It really does. I believe this in my heart. It helps you to understand how you're operating, how others operate, which then opens up the lines of communication. And it helps to explain why my wife can't jump and make a decision like I can, right? Why I just say, come on, just do it. Just do it. Like, that doesn't work for her. Whereas with me and my 9, I can make any decision at any time. It's fine, right?
Yes, you're exactly right. I've had everyone in my family take it as well. So we all joke, and I've been teaching Kolbe for 11, 12 years now, and I still catch myself. If I do something, I'm like, I know that's why I just did that. That's my Kolbe coming out. So
tell me a little bit more now, if you don't mind, now that we've really covered the Kolbe, tell me some cool stuff about Brittany. Like the website, how can people find out about you, your Instagram? Like, you seem to be all over the planet, literally traveling the world, reading books, coaching, just really, living a great life. What's that transition like? Because I know you went to school. I know you probably felt like I have to follow a certain path, but you broke that mold. And how did you do that?
I did. My story is I grew up the all-American girl, and I checked every single box society told me to check, from straight A's to college athlete to went out and got a corporate, big girl job right out of school. I got my master's degree, did all that. And I just remember waking up one day and I was so unhappy. And it was like, there has to be more to life than this. And so what I really found out is, I quit my corporate job and, traveled the world and started reading a lot of books and really just uncovering who I was. I felt like, I always say that we're not lost at all. We're just buried under cultural expectations of who we should be. And that's so especially true with women, because we're always trying to measure up or comparing ourselves with other women. And so I went on this journey of just saying, hey, who am I? Who am I really? Not who my parents wanted me to be or who my friends wanted me to be. But and so that's just where my mission and my passion is anything I can learn and get a hold of to help people truly step into who they are. Like, that is what I want to do. And I feel like we all have a gift. And so my gift is speaking. And so I want to take it and share it with others and just help people just live a great life.
So what has been your most memorable, most maybe outlandish? What has been one of those crazy experiences that you've had? Exploring the world.
Oh my gosh, yes. I've done some crazy things. I look back and like, I probably shouldn't have done that. I probably shouldn't have hitchhiked a ride here, swam with sharks or crazy stuff like that. But I went and lived in Bali in 2017 with 24 strangers from around the world. And I flew over by myself. I had no idea what I was doing. I was like, okay, we're going to another country, and
it's like a TV show. Sounds like one of those Survivor or something.
I know, it's great. And so yeah, it really pulled me out of my comfort zone. And, I grew up in South Georgia. I grew up in a bubble, a very, very small town. And so just being able to get out and see the world. And I always tell people my biggest lesson from that experience is, there's so many good people in the world, despite all the craziness that's going on. There's so much love out there, and like just being kind and doing good and loving on others is what really, really makes the world go round. It's that simple. We just make it way too complicated.
So less watching the news and more loving each other.
You are right. I stopped watching the news like 10 years ago. I always say if a meteorite is about to hit the earth, I'm sure I'll find out about it on social media, but I do not watch the news anymore. So
Excellent. Excellent. Brittany, thank you so much for being here. Now, how can people find you? I know you have that website so they can learn more about you, what you're doing, your coaching, more about Kolbe. So what is that?
Yes. So it's just Brighter with Britt. That's the name of my business. So I do have a website. I'm on TikTok. I'm on Instagram. That's mainly where I live right now. But you can also email me. It's just Brittany@brighterwithbritt.com. I'd love to help you out. Love to talk to you about your teams or just how we can help you be the best version of yourself.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Brittany, for being here. I greatly appreciate it. I know the listeners are going to get a ton of fun and educational information out of this. So thank you for all you do.
Yes, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Take care.